Hi, guys, and welcome to episode 15 of the Health is Wealth podcast. And we've got a full house on today. So today we're going to be discussing, we thought we would work it within the challenge. It was Greg's idea, and I thought it was excellent. All about commitment, accountability, because, let's be honest, most people don't struggle with knowledge. A lot of people have an idea of what to do when they want, whether it's to lose weight or gain muscle. We have to move heavy objects. You're just not doing it consistently. And why? Because commitment, it's not sexy. Commitment isn't. It's something that's to be committed. It's the only thing in hindsight that actually moves the needle. And, we can go on about motivation. We all know motivation is fleeting. People wait for the right time. They wait for the right routine or more motivation, where commitment is what ends that decision fatigue. And it's an identity, basically not a feeling. You don't feel committed, you decide to be committed. It's like discipline. Discipline, we're not born with it. We're not born with discipline. Discipline's trained like a muscle. And treating health as a non-negotiable, in my opinion, is very important, especially if you want to live a long life. The same way that you would treat, how do I put it, your family, your career, your work, meetings, being committed to doing something, making them non-negotiables is what's going to move the needle. Now, with it, before I hand it over to the other guys, there's two things that we ask within our coaching program here at Evidence-Based Coaching, and that is commitment and communication. The guys that give us commitment and communicate is that 96% of our success rate within evidence-based coaching. So I will hand it to Greg, because it was Greg's idea of this subject to cover. So Greg, talk to us about, a bit about your commitment, how you commit, how you hold yourself accountable. I know obviously you've been through our coaching, etc., where we were keeping you accountable as such. And how do you do it? Because you tick the boxes. You tick every single box going that you have in your calendar. And not just that, you're very committed as a whole,
Yeah. So I think I'd build on a few things that Craig said kind of in his introduction. One is he talked about this becoming part of your identity. And I think, a different way of also saying that is being really clear on your why behind doing this. That's something that we've talked about before. And I think the stronger you are, or the clearer you are about why it is that you're doing the things that you're doing and what it is that you're trying to accomplish and why that's important to you, like the more committed you're going to be to that, or the more that will fuel that motivation, if you will, even when you're not feeling very motivated. And in my case, I've shared this before. I mean, kind of my why is that I want to be able to spend as much quality time as I can with my family, with my sons, and then with grandkids when they kind of come along, and also be able to age well, as Craig was sort of saying. And when I think about that kind of keeps me knowing that I need to kind of keep doing the things that I'm doing. And then I would say that the other part of this for me is that as time has gone on, like part of how I think about my identity is someone who is committed to their health and someone who is active and someone who's going to, kind of put the work in to do that. And, just by way of example, this morning, so my wife and I have been on this trip. We're here out of the country. We're about to fly home. And I was able to find a local gym. It was, a little over a mile away, based on having to check out of the hotel and stuff like that, or the Airbnb. I needed to get there right when it opened at 7. And so I like got up early, was pretty tired, went downstairs. It's dark. It's raining outside. It's colder than I thought it was going to be. And, like my first instinct was, I think I'm just gonna like bag on this and like go back inside and stuff. And then I sort of said, that's just not who I am anymore. And, like I told myself that I was going to do this last night when I like made this plan. And so it doesn't matter that it's raining. It doesn't matter that I'm tired. It doesn't matter that it's dark out. Like I'm just gonna go get it done because I know that like once I kind of get going on this and once I'm actually at the gym and things like that, like I'm going to enjoy it and it's going to be a good experience and things like that. And it totally was, right? But I think the part of that for me that kind of made that possible was this kind of shift in identity to the fact that I'm someone who values health and being active and things like that and wanting to be able to fulfill this why that I have. So that's how I kind of think about it, kind of big picture and how it kind of plays into these seemingly smaller decisions that come into play of like, am I going to go to the gym tomorrow? Am I going to like go do something? It's like by making one really big decision, then it kind of simplifies or eliminates having to make all these like smaller decisions, day in and day out about every little thing.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. And John, what about yourself? Again, just like Greg, you've been through the program yourself, John. You're now one of the coaches here. How do you keep yourself committed? How when it comes to things like the exercise, when it comes to ticking the boxes, John.
Yeah, it's similar to what Greg just said, and I love that you said earlier that it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, being committed and holding yourself accountable every day. But the reality of it is that if you're chasing day to day wins, if I'm chasing a single low weigh in on a scale, right, then that's not going to keep me committed. I would rather say, in my mind, let's do this for 30 days or 60 days or a year and see what happens, right? Like I want to pick up, X amount of weight, or I want to be a certain weight on the scale. Um, but the process goals is really where it's at. And if you can, in my opinion, really get to the point where you're enjoying that process on a day to day. I remember, last year when Greg was saying at a point where you said, I get to do this rather than I have to do this. If you
Yeah.
can trade that mindset and just really enjoy the fact that you're getting up and going to the gym that morning, or you're getting up and you're eating in a way that's making you feel in peak condition. I think that's where it's at, rather than just waiting for a single number on the scale. Just really enjoying the process. It's not glamorous by any means, but it's also the difference between I would rather not have, a heart attack, when I've got all this life to live versus, gosh, I'd like to see 2 pounds come off on the scale, right? Like I'd love to be able to hang out with my grandkids well into my 80s, right? Versus I want to see another 5 pounds come off the scale.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, John. And what about yourself, Gary?
Yeah, so I think something that Greg touched on, and I think it's important that people understand and recognize this, is that if someone was to see Greg training this morning, they would automatically assume that Greg was motivated. Greg just got up and straight out of bed. But to have an inner critic, or to harshly put it, inner kind of inner bitch, to say, you know what, I want to go back to bed. I don't want to train. It's cold. It's dark. Insert X, but still willing to push through the discomfort to get to that other side. It just, I suppose it's clear to say, people are saying, motivation, or don't have the motivation to go gym, but we all have them stories we tell ourselves, and I think it's behaving that way to that success. And what would the person who is healthy and fit do in this moment. I think when I reframe that a lot of times for even myself, sometimes it's like as coach, I think it's important to shed that light on not every day do we have the motivation to train, but we still do it anyways. So I think it's is it a matter of raising your standards or or is it admitting that, falling short of your goals and you maybe might need to realign yourself with your goals and if your results are not where you want to be, it takes ownership and it takes shining a light on where you're not doing it or where you're falling short to kind of pick up the pieces to move yourself forward.
Excellent. Thanks, Gary. And like myself, when it comes to the commitment side of it, I don't know about you guys, but I set non-negotiables for myself. Like, for example, I have 3 non-negotiables. One's a physical commitment, like I've got to train 5 days a week. One's like a nutrition anchor where I've got to make sure I have protein with each meal and I have 5 meals a day. And the other one is basically a habit, like a mindset anchor where I have a nighttime routine that I commit to. And it's something I was going to post last over the weekend, actually, a video in the group about it. And it's just something that I've recently introduced as part of my nighttime routine. And it's basically breathing, breathing before I actually get into bed to sleep and actually in the bedroom. And what I've seen, excuse me, is an increase in my heart rate variability. Like my heart rate variability I feel the way I'm training now is I'm training a lot harder than I have in years because I'm stronger. And it's seen what I did notice was my heart rate variability came right down from like 100, between 100 and 110, down to as low as 60. So this is telling me stresses in, high levels of cortisol within the body, etc. My sleep wasn't as good as normal as it usually is. So I introduced the breathing, and what I've been doing it for the last 7 weeks. My heart rate variability went from 60, it went up to 70 within 3 weeks. Then it went up to 90 at week 5. And this week alone, Monday, sorry, it was 112. And I feel it's just through, being committed to making them improvements to it, to my heart rate variability and committing to something that is going to help with that. And what about yourself, Greg? Do you hold yourself to, well, all of you guys, do you hold yourself to any non-negotiables that you guys stick to on a daily basis to keep you committed? Something
Yeah.
to commit.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that's been really important and meaningful to me is trying to focus on daily self-care. And so when I say that, it's things like, at least for me, trying to have a spiritual element to each day, doing some type of personal development or, reading, for example. To Craig's point, like I have found breathing to be helpful. I don't know, so I wouldn't say that I necessarily have a like super consistent process around that, but there are like certain things that I'll do kind of on a daily basis in terms of just trying to make sure that I am kind of taking care of myself, because I think that both helps recovery from a physical standpoint, but then I think it also helps me kind of just stay grounded from a kind of mental, emotional standpoint as well, which then helps me continue to do the things that I feel like are kind of the most important, whether it be in this context or for work or, things like that. I think, in terms of what Craig was also talking about, my experience has been that, you know, we've talked about this a little bit in this podcast before. It's just the power of habits. And I think that the more you get into a regular routine or a regular pattern around either going to the gym, eating well, using the food scale, you know, insert whatever, you know, sets of behaviors you feel like are the most important. Like it might take a little bit of effort to kind of get that going, but over time it takes progressively less and less effort to stay in it. Now it requires some amount of effort and commitment to remain in it. But you know, it reduces as time goes on. And so I've definitely tried to, as much as possible, have certain routines as well to then also simplify things or make it easier for me to do the things that I feel like are most important, which then, whether you want to call that commitment or whether you just want to call that, you know, positive daily habits, either way, the net result is the same.
Excellent, thank you. And John, what about you? Do you have any non-negotiables that you stick to on a daily?
Yeah, for me, I'm acutely aware when I am not hydrated properly. So the water's a huge one for me. I try to get in about a gallon a day if I can. I don't know don't ask me to do the metric equivalent, but uh, yeah, I'll do that, and I also feel that, you know, I get a lot of steps on a daily basis, but if I can commit to like a single walk, right? Like if I can do a 20 to 30-minute walk every day, that for me forms a big foundation. I'm fairly antsy, I would say, to begin with. So getting, you know, between 15 and 20,000 steps a day is kind of just part of my normal routine anyway. But but if I can form a platform of you know, of a 20 to 30-minute walk that I do every single day at the same time, then that certainly helps that cause.
Cool. And Gary?
Yeah, so funny you talked about the breath work. I'm not sure whether the clients know. I don't think many know, but I'm currently, as you know, Craig, doing a breath work facilitator course. Which, when I'm qualified, what I might do in August is do some training and stuff within the group. I think that'd be quite cool. But
Excellent, yeah.
I don't track my HRV anymore, but I'd be curious to know what it is now. But it's definitely, I've noticed doing a pre-bed routine. I've always been an advocate on sleep, on making sure minimum 7 hours for me. Once it goes dips below six, I'm not getting much done. I don't feel like I'm on top cognitively. But definitely doing breath work pre-bed has been a game changer. So what I might do is I might drop a soundtrack or a meditation into the group after this call. 10 minutes deep connected breath. It's very, very straightforward that guys can follow. For me though, from a nutrition standpoint, is when I've set something to make sure I follow through on that, you know, and to really, for me, that's how I've built the confidence internally within myself. So making sure it's my choice to do this. So if I've set what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow through, you know, as best as I possibly can. But definitely sleep, breath work, and nutrition. And then from a
So,
cognitive function and mental standpoint is training. So minimum 4 times. I know you said you're five, but for me, minimum 4 times a week, strength training.
yeah, excellent. That's great, guys. Thank you. And anyone else want to touch on anything? The beauty of it is with these podcasts, guys, is we want to keep them short. So, you know, like some of the podcasts that I click on lately are like 60 minutes long. We know time is of the essence for you guys, you know, so we know you haven't got a lot of time. So this is why we do prefer to keep these short and straight to the point. So just a quick recap on the calls. And I know we all know motivation is fleeting and commitment is chosen. It's a choice. Accountability multiplies consistency just by being accountable to someone or something, or, you know, and your identity must match your intentions. And when it comes to being committed, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we asking of two things from you guys, and that's communication and commitment. And being committed is difficult, especially as we know, majority of you guys, within this program are very busy. You're executives. We understand your time constraints. But sometimes you have to draw the line when it comes to health, because you get one shot at this life. You've got to make the most of it, and if you let things run away from themselves and you don't actually commit to doing something to improve it, then you're not going to live as long as you could. Anyway, that is it. Episode 15. And guys, whoever's watching this, if you've got any questions, just shoot any of us a message. If you need anything, any resources or that will help, just let us know. Let me know, or Gary or John or Greg, and we'll get them straight over to you. The main thing is, let's get some comments below this of areas where you feel that you would like us to cover within from a health standpoint. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day and see you in the next one.